Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 70 of Chris and Matt's Wrestling Pod. I totally forgot last week was number 69. I was going to make some jokes, ha ha ha, but I totally spaced on it. So, oh well, such is life. We're at 70 now.
I heard sometime at 69 is pretty forgettable for a lot of people. So
yeah. I hear it's nice. That's all I hear. So.
See, we got the joke in. You got your pervert joke in. I hope you're happy.
I am. I'm proud of myself. We're going to attempt to talk about pro wrestling tonight. One of us is in a lesser mood to do so because of a certain documentary that was watched. And we'll get into that and a couple other things before we try not to act like the sky is falling with the Lions. Because everyone's hurt.
Well. Oh, yeah, this is going to be an upbeat episode for old Matty McDurr.
Yeah. Real positive. We need a new day.
Me, Mr. Positivity, who's prone to seeing the...
Yeah, I was going to say, we need a new day to come and tell us not to be sour. But they have their own issues right now, so...
Everyone's got problems.
Before we get started, leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. Once again, thank you to the guys over at Late Night Grin for having me this past Friday to watch One Night Only 1997. That was a lot of fun. And it was a really good time. So thanks again for them. I should be back on next week for Bad Blood preview. So shout out to those guys. So do you wanna start with the McMahon stuff and get it out of the way and move on to the rest of it, or where is your, what's your preference here? Because we don't do any pre-production, so
to be honest, I'm still kind of like trying to formulate all of my thoughts on it.
Okay.
Why don't we do what you were gonna launch into, and then we can get there. That way, if I'm like I can't talk about this anymore, we are not ignoring the wrestling part of the moonsaults part of music and moonsaults.
Okay. All right. Fair. Well, let's start. Let's start. We'll go in chronological. So we'll end the wrestling talk with something that I'm hoping that you're going to be positive about, and then we'll get into the unfortunateness. But what did we didn't really talk about it. What did you think of the Cody Roman mini movie, a la WCW 1992 from SmackDown on Friday?
I thought it was. I like that it's something different. I like that they tried to like I said, do something different. I thought it was good. I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was crappy. But I thought the reactions to it were a little over the top. Of like, this was the greatest. I can't believe they. It just wasn't like. It wasn't that incredible to me.
Right.
And I didn't think the content was all that great until it got to the point where Roman was like, "That's mine," and Cody's like, "The hell it is." I thought everything about before that was just kind of like, all right, this could have been done in the ring. Like, Cody clearly was at the show. Where were they last week? Portland or something like that for SmackDown?
They're in Sacramento.
Okay, they're on the West Coast. So, like, if I'm Cody Rhodes and I had to go all the way to Atlanta and then back to the West, back and forth to shoot this vignette,
well, I'm
logically speaking, I would have.
assuming they filmed it earlier in the week before he left for the show. So
Right, but they were on the West Coast last week too, weren't they? Haven't they been on the West Coast trip for a while?
yeah, you're right. They were in Seattle the week before, but I mean, he was going to go home anyway, so it's not like he was going to chill out on the West Coast for a week. They're not doing live events, so
yeah, that's fair. It just me
right
trying to poke
nitpicking.
holes because that's
Yeah.
what I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
nitpicking. That's what I do. No, I thought it was I thought it was good. It's they have the potential for this to be their version of Rock Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, if the roles reverse, I think it's going to do huge business.
Mm-hmm.
So even bigger business
right
than what it's already done. So
yeah.
I liked it. He's more your boy. What did you think of it?
I liked it. Like you said, like I thought the people that were like claiming it was the greatest thing ever was a little bit of hyperbole. Shout out Terry Froster. Yeah, like I love what I did love about it. I love the dichotomy of like Roman pulling up with 5 SUVs like a mob bus, because that's kind of how they like, especially the very early days of the Bloodline, that's how they were presented. You know, the original Bloodline shirt was like a mafia type, like him sitting at the head of the table and all that kind of stuff. So I really like that. And then Cody just pulling up solo in a sports car or whatever. That I thought that was a cool little yin and yang. And then yeah, like the actual talking part of it was your standard stuff they probably were going to say to each other, whether they were in an arena or, and this, like, there was someone who was like, this would have been better in the ring or something like that. I'm like, no, it wouldn't have been. This would have been awful in the ring, because they would have had to fight through all the chants of the crowd. This is awesome. And, let's go Cody, let's go we want Roman, blah, blah. It would have been like 10 minutes longer, and just, yeah, it would have been worse. So I'm glad they did it like this. And so that part I liked. I can't say this for certainty, but given Cody's involved, it definitely wasn't as campy as like, those early WCW ones with, Vader and Sid on the beach and, blowing up the boat or whatever with Sting. But it's hard not to think of that, whenever Cody's involved in stuff like this. So I like that part of it. And then, yeah, the closing of, after we're done with this, I'm coming back for what's mine. You can't have it. And the ultimate, the most relatable Roman's ever been. You're in my way in life. That's just great closing line. I laughed at it. So I might steal that at some point for somebody that I don't like, you're in my way in life. But yeah, no, I dug it. So I'm excited to see what they still got 2 more SmackDowns before the pay-per-view. So I'm seeing, and then you got the Kevin Owens part of this too, like in the background.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah. To me, what I enjoyed the most about it was the Kevin Owens stuff afterwards of like, what the hell is going on around here? All these people that Roman just ran over for years are just forgiving his sins because suddenly people like him, like the fans are cheering him. Like this is going to be the I would assume the breaking point of KO. And I think ultimately it's going to end up leading to Randy following KO and attacking Cody and leading to the Randy Orton Cody match, because everyone that Kevin has aligned himself with has gone back to helping the bloodline. Even Sammy. Like I think you're gonna see this thing where like Cody teams with Roman, even though he has no reason to, given the history. And then Sammy is I think a lock for the War Games match that everyone assumes is gonna happen. Like I think that's going to make Kevin snap. And then he's just going to expect it to come from Randy, and Randy being just like KO in the sense of like you can't really trust him. That's where he turns on Cody, and then we're off to the races of the student versus the teacher story that I think a lot of people want to see.
Yeah. No, sounds good to me. That all sounds very plausible, and yeah, and it's one of those where again you can kind of see, like you can see it make. I don't want to say it makes sense because we talked about last week how if you really think about it, it doesn't make sense. But like in wrestling logic, I understand why Cody's agreeing to this match, like because as much as he wants to be done with the bloodline refuses to be done with him. So he's kind of like, all right, well, I guess I'll fight them. And, if you're got to be there, that's fine, but I want to take these guys out. But on the other hand, like I completely see why KO is reacting the way that he is. Like, they put him through hell for like 4 years. Like he got it more than anybody almost, because it was a constant. It was like every 6 months is like, who do we have to fight Roman? Well, let's do Kevin Owens again. And so he got it constantly for 4 years. So,
well, and look, we've heard it for years. The best bad guys are the ones who feel like they're not wrong. They're not out of line for acting that way. And I feel like a lot of people would be like, yeah, if they do it the way I was kind of thinking of like, well, of course he's upset. Everyone he trusts ends up going to the guy that screws all of them over. He would be justified in his heel turn at that point. And they're not going to cheer Kevin over Cody, not Captain Fanatics. So like he's going to become an instant heel, but he's going to have that bit of like, yeah, but he's justified in his actions.
Right. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I agree with that. So I'm like I said, I'm looking forward to the next story beat in this, and see where it goes. So sorry, I'm trying to.
It's going to main event Bad Blood, and then Phil's going to get upset, and we're going to be right back in 2013, 2014 all over again.
So I'm glad you. I thought we might save it for next week, but I'm glad you brought this up. I agree that Hell in a Cell should probably main event, judging by like the length of the story, the heat of the story, and all that kind of stuff. But the way these Punk stands are reacting on my timeline, I'm like, out of spite, I hope the tag match main events, because they're being like ridiculous about it. Like, it's the two biggest stars teaming up in the company. One of them just so happens to be a top 5 merch mover in all of sports, by the way. Like, ridiculous. In his hometown, no less. Like, yeah, they're gonna main event. Sorry.
I honestly don't think it matters. I don't think I think this is just fans looking for something to argue about, because that's all people want to do is argue about everything pro wrestling. They don't like, it's to a point where I don't think a lot of these people like wrestling as much as they like fighting with other people about wrestling.
Damn, that's
because
a bar.
Here's the thing. The crowds are so hot right now. The main event usually doesn't have the most energy because they burning themselves out by the time they get to the main event. Like, and it's not 1987. Okay, the main event doesn't get paid more than the opening show because the gates are already, the gates are what they are, but they're not charging for pay-per-views. They're not charging a premium to see the show. So, like, they're going to get their money no matter what.
Yeah.
And whether or not it goes on last or the middle of the show, the crowd's going to be hot for it either way. Maybe because it's a U.S. show, I'll get proven wrong. But all these shows they're doing overseas, the crowds are there pretty much for the whole show. But by the main event, they're a little burned out because they've been screaming for 3 hours.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen in Atlanta, but whether or not it happens, I don't think it really makes a difference on what this match is going to mean.
Right. And like what'll matter is coming out of it. Like if Punk and Drew do their job, they'll be the most talked about thing coming out of it. And like that's the win. Like what's the most famous Hell in a Cell match in history?
Right.
And where was that on the card? So
right, middle of the show.
Yeah, I think it was like right before the main event of the show, or maybe there might have been another match.
I'm pretty sure there's like a match in between. Yeah.
Okay, but regardless, it wasn't the main event, and that's all people remember from that night. So I'm not saying Punk or Drew need to kill themselves like Mick Foley, but it can happen.
Sure.
Like
and the company is so popular right now too. I don't think people are going to be happy with unless they completely shit the bed in either one of the matches. People are going to be happy. They're going to be excited about it coming out of it. Like it's another nonsense argument with wrestling fans.
Yeah, I agree. Unless you had anything else SmackDown related, we can move on to Raw.
There was something on SmackDown that I really enjoyed.
Was it the Chelsea Green dumpster?
It was
vignette.
That's what it was. That was like, you had kind of mentioned the campy WCW vignettes from back in the day. That was a really funny, just stupid vignette. That just like continues the show. I don't know a lot about Chelsea Green. Every time I see her, I'm like, wow, she's entertaining, but like I don't tune in to watch her. That was really good shit.
Yeah, it was. It was very good, very entertaining. I guess there's supposed to be another one this week as well.
Nice.
Because that match isn't supposed to be till the week after. So yeah.
Oh, no, and we got to mention LA Knight Andrade. Outstanding match. Outstanding match. I texted you afterwards, like, for a guy as talented as Andrade is, he has, like, I don't mean to make the guy sound like a jerk. There's got to be he's got to be so hard to work with. It's the only explanation how a guy that good just can't seem to find consistency anywhere he goes. So hopefully this is the start of him actually getting to be like a top mid-card type of guy who maybe breaks into the main event scene once in a while. Because when that guy has his working boots on, he's one of the best they have.
Oh, for sure. And then his series with Carmelo continues this week, so which has been good. Yeah. I liked how they kind of just like it's just sort of, even though like for the last few matches, like we can tell like, okay, this is like a best of 7, but they haven't like, this is a best of 7 series. It's kind of just been a gradual, like, all right, well, let's run it back. Let's run it back. So I like that part of it too.
I agree.
So, talking about, you mentioned the hot crowds earlier. Did you see the pop for when Jey Uso won the Intercontinental title on Monday?
I did. I mean, I know I'm super critical of Jey, but I can't. I think I've been pretty consistent in like, of course they need to keep running with him because the crowd loves him. Like He's clearly got a connection. He's not my cup of tea. I didn't even watch Raw this week because I knew that was the main event, and I assumed he was going to win. I take that back. I did watch the last 5 minutes of the match, but he's not my cup of tea. But man, he's over, and they were into it. And I don't know. I don't know that I like having Braun lose the belt so quick, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm curious what his next steps are. Because that seemed like a really short reign, and then maybe he wins it back here. I felt like you kind of had to put it on Jey at this point to give him something, because he always comes up until this time has always come up short. He came up short in King of the Ring tournament, and he came up short wrestling Seth for the world title, and he came up short against Damian for the world title. Like, he keeps coming up short in
Roman at SummerSlam.
Yeah, last year. So he keeps coming up short in all these big, main event matches. So he had to come through one of these times. So I'm glad they did it. Whether it's just to turn around and put it back on Braun here in a little bit, or whatever, that that's fine. But I'm glad they did it. I'm glad it happened. So, and like I said, the way the crowd, I guess, this is the way the crowd reacted. Like, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, that definitely was the right call.
Sure. I guess for me, and obviously hindsight's 2020, but I think I think creative in WWE has had this War Games match penciled in for a while. And I think the obvious move is Sammy's going to join Jimmy and Jey with Roman, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to see if that actually happens, but if it does, I'm just going to throw this proposal out to you. What if they would have just left the belt on Sammy and Jey beats Sammy for the belt, and there's a little bit of tension between the two of them after Jey has beaten Sammy for the belt and yada, yada, yada. But then they put it aside so that they can handle bloodline business, and it just reinforces that the two of them are tight, even though they had a bitter battle over the IC title. And then when it's time for Jey to lose the belt, then you put it on Braun, and you let Braun have a little bit longer of a run.
Yeah, you could do that. That's certainly that's one idea they could have done. Seeing as this is the direction they've gone, I was thinking more this could be him winning this title on his own. Could be a some sort of, I don't know, like maybe when Roman comes to ask for his help, Roman can kind of see, like, come out from a place of like, hey, I'm proud of you, and showing that, like, hey, I'm actually proud of you, even though I put you through hell, as your cousin or whatever, like I still like what you've done. I'm proud of you. And that kind of being the thing that like helps bridge that or build that bridge back up between the two of them.
I think you could do that and still tell the story of Jey and Sammy having a battle for the belt too.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's we'll see where it goes from here, but like I said, I'm happy for Jey, and I'm happy that that they pulled the trigger on it. Trying to think if there's anything else really noteworthy on Raw this week. We're getting a
Dominic on a pole match.
Yeah, Dominic in the shark cage at the pay-per-view. Awesome. All for it.
The best part about that whole thing was after they announced it, him saying, "I'm not going back. I can't go back. Like,
I can't get locked
prison
up.
Hardened, yeah. Dominic, go back." Yeah, like that was like.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who fed him that line or if he came up with it on his own, but that was I popped when I saw that clip.
Mm-hmm. How about him showing up in the lowrider? Like, that was pretty good too.
Sure. Sure.
The last Monster Standing match this coming Monday. Now, normally Not a fan of last man standing matches, but I'm excited. I'm not sick of watching these two behemoths just beat the hell out of each other. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. So
Sure.
They're still dragging their feet with Sammy and Gunther. I'm not quite sure when they're going to do that match, because you got to think. I mean, they got time, because after Bad Blood, there might be a Saudi show. I'm trying to think. Yeah, there probably is a Saudi show, like end of October, beginning of November, because Survivor Series isn't until the Thanksgiving weekend. So you got plenty of time to fit that in between the two, but I don't know. It's kind of weird how they're kind of stringing it out, but yeah. I mean, other than that, it was all the Rhea.
I think this is part of the kind of revamping of what they're doing with their PLEs, though. When there's only a handful of matches that can be on every card, you can kind of stretch it out a little bit, where you don't have to put everything on the PLE.
Sure.
You can kind of break it up, and it's not a forced title match just because, well, there's a PLE coming up, world champ's got to defend the title, especially in a company where you have two world champions.
Right.
So
be kind of weird that neither world title will be defended on the PLE, but whatever. You got the All-Star tag, and then you've got the Hell in a Cell. That more than makes up for it, I think.
Right.
Well,
I mean, there's a few other big matches on that show too. So
yeah. Rhea Liv, Priest and Finn. Those stories still continue to build. For the PLE. That was about it on Raw. Yeah, I think that was about it. So, did you watch all of Grand Slam, or when did you end up shutting it off?
I watched the entire show.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll save the opener for last, because I know that's what you really want to talk about. What did you think of the rest of the show? I really liked. I know you're gonna roll your eyes. I did like the tag team title match. And I thought Roddy and Hook was okay. MVP showing up, not surprising. But the fact that he's kind of like trying to angle in on Swerve's business was interesting to me. And I think Matt is frozen. All right. Yeah, MVP showing up was good. Kind of interested to see where that goes. And what else? The main event was okay. It wasn't the best, but it was okay. But we knew where it was going. Moxley was going to win, and then he's going to face Bryan at Wrestle Dream. So I think Matt's back now.
Hopefully.
We're back.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. I don't know how much of that you heard.
I heard up until I thought Hook and Roddy was good.
Okay. All right. That was pretty much it. So, but yeah, I like the tag match a lot. Roddy and Hook was good. The main event was okay, but it was kind of predictable. I knew Moxley was going to win, and so him and Bryan. I did like Bryan coming out of nowhere with the tie and choking Moxley after the match, and trying to get the jump on him before the rest of BCC came in and got him off of him. But yeah, what did you think of the show overall before we get to the opening match?
Sure. Yeah, I agreed with you that I thought Hook and Roddy was solid. The retiring of the FTW title, I really like, because there's too many championships. That's kind of a gimmick title. I mean, they're all gimmicks, right? But
Right.
it was kind of a gimmick title. You retire it with his dad there. As I was watching the show live, though, when he handed him the belt, I yelled out loud, "Now waffle him with the title!" I wanted Taz to hit Hook so bad with that belt. Real quick, I almost texted you this last night. Doesn't it feel like Hook should be a little more further along than he is? I feel like because I haven't watched in a while, it feels like it's the same thing with him that it was 2.5 years ago when he was kind of getting the ball rolling. I don't know. I think that is more of the problem of AEW in that they don't work a lot. They only work once a week, twice a week maybe. So a guy like that just isn't developing as quickly as maybe contemporaries do over in NXT.
And as far as I know, like, he doesn't go out and do indie bookings like some of the other guys and gals. So
right. The tag match was what it was. It's a Young Bucks match. It's you know, and I like their style. I know everyone was popping for that sequence where it was the Facebuster 450 Canadian Destroyer. What is he called? Hidden Blade.
Right.
And I was just kind of like, and like that's the sort of stuff that like I understand why people hate the Young Bucks and Ospreay to an extent because it was you know, look at all this cool stuff we can do, and then but it doesn't make sense. Like they friggin' Meltzer driver to my Felcher on the apron, and then throw him in the ring and just like work the hole. Like what?
Right.
Way to make that move not seem dangerous. But it was what it was. I still can't. I can't watch the Young Bucks and not just be angry. It just is how I am.
Fair.
What else was on there? The women's match was solid. And then the main event. I didn't care for the main event, like we talked about last week. I think the whole thing was stupid.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me being sour and salty on AEW. I'm kind of over Darby. It's the same match every time. He gets the crap kicked out of him. He does a couple crazy stunts. People go, "Oh my God, how is he still surviving?" Okay. I was kind of. We've talked about this before, and I was thinking about it again today. You know, they're about to have their 5-year anniversary, and you know the pillars of the company. We're 5 years into this, and those guys, none of them are any bigger than they really were when they started. Besides MJF, I don't know that you can call them pillars anymore. They're just guys. They're just another part of the roster. They're not people that are going to elevate the rest of the company to a higher spot.
Yeah.
You know, the McMahon documentary that I watched kind of got me in that mindset of like Rock debuts in 96. 3 years later, he's main eventing WrestleMania. Michaels goes singles in 92. 3 years later, he's main eventing WrestleMania. He's the top heel in the company. Austin arrives in 96. By 98, he's a top guy. He's the top guy. Like, if they haven't hit a spot within 5 years where those guys are major draws for the company, I don't think they're ever going to get there. So, like, a guy like Darby, I've seen his shtick now. There's nothing new there for me.
Yeah. I think they're probably what's probably going to happen is I think Mox is going to beat Bryan at Wrestle Dream. And then eventually, I don't know when, but I think eventually Darby will be the one to beat Mox.
Maybe.
Maybe. You know, your mileage may vary on that. So that's all. I'll just leave that there.
I think there are 8 to 10 other performers in the company that are better suited to be world champion than Darby Allin at this point. I think a couple years ago was your opportunity to try to make him a bigger deal, but especially because you know when he's on the mic he's a tough watch, and I know persona isn't everything, mic skills aren't everything, promos aren't everything, but he's not on the level of a lot of the guys in that company when it comes to being the top guy or a top guy.
Well, right. I'm thinking through my head. Like, I don't think there's been a AEW World Champion that's been a bad promo. I think
Right.
they're all good to great promos. Like, so yeah, no, I agree with you there. I agree with you on that point. So, but we'll see how that plays out. Back to the tag match. You know, the finish was Don was trying to get Kyle to use the screwdriver, and Ospreay stopped him. My guess is that next week, that Ricochet is going to join the family, and they're going to either cost Ospreay the match to put the title on Ricochet, or after the match put the boots to Ospreay, Kyle Fletcher and Don and Takeshita and all of them. So
Yeah, I can see that happening.
it's my guess. So still, I got my eye on it. I'm hoping, seeing as, Ospreay's wrestling on Dynamite, I'm hoping like they're taping Collision the next day. I'm hoping maybe he'll be on Collision, seeing he's already here. So
yeah,
but we'll see.
Yeah, I think we might have a conversation about, do you want to just wing it and go down there and see what happens?
Well, I need something. I need something before I make that decision. I need something announced that I like halfway care about. But yeah, we'll talk offline about it. All right. Let's get unless you had something else, let's move to the unfortunate. Oh, we didn't even talk about the match. Sorry.
I'm like, whoa. There's one thing I need to talk about.
So sorry. I totally spaced. That's on me. Bad host. Danielson McGuinness. I'll just clear out. You get an ISO here. Go ahead.
My wife looked over at me and she goes, "You are nerding out right now." And the match hadn't even started yet. I haven't been that happy watching wrestling in a very long time. Like, I knew Brian was winning all the way, but like, I felt like I was 16 all over again. When he hits the Tower of London, I'm clapping my hands, and like he's throwing up the finger. I was there for every bit of it. Yeah, it was slow. It was a little sloppy. It clearly McGuinness hasn't been in a ring in 13 years, but the chain wrestling was on point. The reversals were there. You could tell they still had the chemistry together. It was just, for me, it was really great to see him get to have, and I put this on Twitter, to see Nigel get to have that match on national TV in front of a packed house with the world champ was just like, that's how that guy should have been able to go out. I talked it was last week or a couple weeks ago of like, the Rollins and the Owens and Zayn and all these guys that came up. Like, in my opinion, he was better than all of them. But for various reasons, his career just didn't work out the way it did. And to see him take 13 years off and come back and have that match was just awesome. I was so happy for him. It wasn't Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam levels, but it was pretty damn close for a guy who had been off for that long. And Brian carried him at points. You could see he was getting blown up in a few spots. But man, I miss seeing that guy wrestle. I miss seeing him wrestle. The spot with Brian's arm, like, of course, they found a great way to drag the match out a little longer. It didn't require Nigel to try to go back to 2008. Just great stuff. And too, like, I feel like for Brian, because Brian is winding down, clearly. You just said you think he's going to lose to Moxley at Wrestle Dream. If that's the case, he said his full-time career is over after that. If his second to last match as a full-time wrestler is against the guy that he, has outwardly said he wouldn't have gotten where he was without Nigel, like, that's a beautiful moment for Brian too. I hope there's footage that they captured to show what it meant to the two of them, because I get a feeling like they talked about it after the match backstage.
I'm sure.
And I want to see that footage. So,
I'm sure.
At the same time, because Nigel has come out and in interviews in the last week or two talked about like he didn't, there was the hepatitis rumor and that his bicep was so blown out he wasn't going to be able to ever wrestle again, and he came out and said none of that was true, but when WWE said they didn't want me, I didn't want to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't continue to wrestle that style on the indies for the kind of money they were paying me.
Right.
And like last night just kind of made me think like, man, if he would have just stuck it out for another year on the indies and then WWE called him, maybe he would have got his run, because clearly he didn't lose a step when it came to being an in-ring wrestler. But
yeah,
I'm happy for him. I wouldn't be disappointed if he had a couple more, but if that's the last one he ever has, what a great way for him to go out.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of thought they might have done like because they did right before he tapped out where he said thank you or whatever. They caught that.
Yeah.
I kind of thought they might do after the match. BCC comes out to get Brian and like Nigel, like not really like, I don't know, out of respect or something, like maybe like helps Brian fight him off or something. I thought they might do something like that, but
no, I was kind of hoping the opposite.
Oh, that he would join BCC.
Yeah, that he would just blast Brian and it's never over between the two of them, sort of thing. But
that's fair.
Yeah.
So, well, good. I'm glad you got that.
Yeah. What did you? Because I tried to get you into those two 15 years ago now. At this point, you were like, "That's boring. I don't care."
No. It was never the wrestling. It was I couldn't. I grew up with bright lights. Like I couldn't deal with the production. I just couldn't do it. Whatever. Sorry. So it was never the wrestling. It was never the wrestling that was the problem. So no, it was good. I'm glad. I'm glad that it was something that everyone got to like watch, and it was on because I was like, man, they could, if they would have just planned this out better, they could have just done this at Wembley. That would have been awesome. But I'm like, no, having this on national television probably was the best way to go. So
yep. Kudos to both guys.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah. So I'm glad it opened the show too. So
yeah, because I tuned in to be like, all right, if they put this match on first, I can just check out. And I actually texted you that I was like, all right, well, I saw what I need to. I'm out of here. And then something in my head was like, just watch it. What else are you going to do? Play more college football or whatever. And then, it wasn't my favorite show, but it wasn't terrible either.
Yeah, it was fine. So, all right. Now, you've watched all 6 episodes of the Mr. McMahon documentary.
Yes.
I have not watched any because I don't have Netflix, and I thought about, because obviously I'm going to have to eventually get Netflix before January. But there was a small part of me that was like, should I just get it now and watch this? But I'm like, no, like I know most. I said probably 90% of the stuff that they're going to cover. I probably know in some form or fashion, and I kind of knew that because of the way it was, when they filmed everything and stuff like that, I knew there wasn't going to be specifically related to the lawsuit and all that. There wasn't going to be a whole lot on it. Obviously that, they weren't going to, in fact, it came out that after that, he refused his last interviews he was supposed to do for the project.
Well, he canceled
canceled.
his final interviews before the Janelle Grant stuff came out.
Oh,
He
see, I thought it
canceled
was.
his interviews when the stuff came out about him paying the hush money the first time.
Gotcha.
So he
Right.
didn't even no one even knew about the trafficking allegations, and he had already chickened out because he's a coward and a piece of garbage.
Right.
Because for once, someone was going to be able to nail him for being the
Mm-hmm.
low-life piece of human excrement that he is. And
Yeah.
he just backed out, and then he tried to buy the project because he didn't want people to know just how crazy he is and how he has cultivated this world where, like, people who should know better just make excuses for him.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I guess just, what are your overall thoughts? Like, not so. What are your thoughts? Like, was it a good doc series? I guess start
No.
there. Okay.
No. It's and I know you've probably seen, basically the review is, if you're a wrestling fan who's paid attention to this, none of this is new information.
Yeah.
And it's made for the larger audience. The problem is people like us who have paid attention to this stuff for years can watch that documentary and go, they're leaving out huge chunks of the story here because they're committed to telling both sides of the story. Well, Vince McMahon was this creative genius, and he built this thing, and he took it out of smoky arenas and made it family friendly, blah blah blah. But then at the same time, there's this dark side, yada yada yada. But they skip over the Jimmy Snuka stuff. It's like a 90-second clip in a 6-episode story arc. They spend 90 seconds talking about how he covered up a murder. They hardly touch on the Rita Charlton stuff until like the 4th episode, and even that gets glazed over with nothing was ever proved in court, and Vince denied all allegations, and then you get clips of all these guys being like, well, nothing ever happened, so it's not, I don't know why it was such a big deal, it's just another woman making something up. And then at the end of the episode, you know how they'll finish an episode, and then you'll get text on the screen that's like a follow-up. It's like, in 2023, the New York state law changed that said you could go back and revisit these sexual assault cases and go after people. And as soon as that happened, McMahon made a multi-million-dollar settlement with her. If you didn't do anything wrong and it happened 40 years ago, why are you making a settlement for it? Because you know they've got the dirt on you and you can't cover it up like you did 40 years ago.
Yeah.
It's really disappointing to me, too, that they filmed all these interviews in 2021, 2022. We know what happened earlier this year when the lawsuit came out, and they continue to use clips of these guys talking about Vince and glowing light, and they don't have anything from post allegations from any of these talent. Hey, do you want to take back saying you'd take a bullet for Vince McMahon now that you know that he trafficked a woman, allegedly? None of that is in there. It's just guys going, oh, yeah, Vince is a complicated character, and the man might not be that much different than the character. But then you cut to Vince, and he's like, oh, no, there's a complete difference. I'm nothing like the character. Are you freaking kidding me? Like, you're to a T, you're the character. It's really disappointing to see a lot of people that we like, that have brought a lot of joy, just completely ignore decades of awfulness. And it's what it really boils down to is Vince had so much influence over everybody, all of those people, that he just convinced them, I'm not a bad guy. I do what's best for business. And when I do what's best for business, it puts more money in your pocket. So if you want to stay around and make some of this big WWF money, you're going to ignore the fact that I do a lot of awful things to people. And I make up reasons to force my female talent to do sexual things with me on screen, because the evil Vince McMahon character would do that. That's not the real guy. that's just the character. But then, like, they point out in the documentary about how Ashley Mazzaro had accused him of sexual assault. And after she died, her lawyer, and I believe they said after the allegations came out, her lawyer released a statement that basically was like, when I refused Vince's advances, my career was tanked. And then they play the clip of her bumping it on the show. She bumps into him and he screams at her and yells at her and throws coffee on her and is like, you're suspended indefinitely. But that's just the character of Mr. McMahon, Chris. That's not the real Vince McMahon. The real Vince McMahon was fine with being rejected by this young woman. Like, it's complete. It's just, it's what we've heard from the WWE for years. It's just completely bullshit revisionist history. And they tried to balance it out with some clips that prove that he's completely full of it. But I don't know. It just doesn't drive the point home hard enough for me.
Right.
And then like, and I'm just ranting here. Like I said at the start, I haven't really had a chance to formulate all of my thoughts. But like, you got Stone Cold Steve Austin talking about how he doesn't believe CTE is a real thing, and he never bought. If you're a wrestler and you've got a bunch of concussions, it means you're not doing your job well. And then they proceed to show clip after clip of Billy Gunn dropping Benoit on his head and Albert dropping Benoit on his head. Like, how is that Chris Benoit's fault? Like,
right.
The talent didn't protect him. It's just, like I said, just really disappointing to see how many people were just enthralled with what Vince did for them and turned a blind eye to all the other stuff over the years. The only guy who was like, Vince is a piece of garbage.
Oh yeah.
And even that, there's scenes in the documentary where they're talking about Owen, and it's like Vince thinks Brett's hatred over the Owen stuff is Brett's own ego about Vince, and it's like, you killed his brother and then continue to have the show run.
Right.
Of course he thinks you're a piece of trash. Like, what do you expect? There were if you want to see into the mind of someone who clearly has not been told no for 40, 50 years, that's the value of the documentary.
Right.
Where he talks about crushing his competition and the territory days and building a brand. But then they ask him, okay, but why was what Ted Turner did in WCW different? And he can't really come up with a good answer other than to say, well, it wasn't fair business. He had deeper pockets and was just buying talent. You literally did the exact same thing
right.
to dozens of promotions. Like, you're such a hypocrite.
Yeah. The difference is it's happening to me now, damn it. Yeah.
Right. And you know, there's a really disturbing the last episode. If you're not going to watch the whole thing, the last two episodes are really worth watching to get an insight into like the awfulness of Vince.
Mm-hmm.
The last episode kicks off. The interview is going on in 2021. And he's like, you know, my brain is like two different computers. I've got one computer that's sitting here with you now, talking to you about what we're talking about. But then my other computer is like is another one where I'm thinking of something completely different. And sometimes that gets me into trouble, and it's a bad thing. And then there's this third computer that's just way off in the distance. And that's kind of how my mind works. And they're like, well, what is your third computer doing right now? And he's like, well, probably out there having some fun of a sexual nature. That is going on at the exact time where he allegedly is doing all of this stuff with Janelle Grant. He's openly willing to brag about it to documentarians because he's so emboldened by never getting held accountable for anything that he'll just bring it up. And I think that is kind of the takeaway from the whole thing of like, he got away with being a scumbag for so long. He just never thought it was going to come back and get him because he was always able to buy his way out of it or talk his way out of it.
Right.
And this one, it didn't happen, and I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's either going to end up in prison or he's going to die before he goes to prison, because they got him this time. It seems like.
Yep. Yeah. Thank God for that. So, all right. Well, I wasn't sure if you were, because like I said, I knew I wasn't gonna end up watching it, and especially when I was online, and it was like the things I kept seeing was like, let me rephrase that. The thing that Meltzer kept going back and forth with people about, the two things were Montreal and the WrestleMania 3 attendance. I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, why are we so, why do, like, who
and that's
fucking cares at this point about both those things?
And I think, and this is part of why, like, I'm not, like, I'm having like I don't know if I want to keep watching this stuff again.
Sure.
You know me, like, I've been back and forth. Like, I don't watch the Saudi shows because I have a real problem with them doing business with a country that has committed some of the most atrocious human rights violations of all time. Like, I'm not gonna support that stuff. And I've had a hard time coming to grips with myself as a wrestling fan, because I feel like guys like us, are part of the reason why it was so bad. Because it's not like this stuff just came up. We've known for years the allegations. One allegation is like, all right, maybe it's a misunderstanding. Two is like, okay, what is going on here? When it's like dozens of people over the course of 40 years have had major terrible incidents with this man, like, it's not random, and it's not something we should ignore, but we've always done it. We always do it, because as long as they entertain us, oh well.
Right.
Doesn't affect me. I don't care.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm gonna have a hard time watching, like, Hunter go out on get all of this recognition for what the company is doing right now, and then remembering that, like, in this documentary, he's justifying, how awful Vince was.
Right.
Like, he literally like threw his daughter out of the company because she had the audacity to say, "Hey, Dad, you paid off women with company money to keep your affairs quiet. You can't be here anymore. We're a publicly traded company. That's not how this works." And he held it against her and threw his daughter out of the company.
Yeah.
Because she had the audacity to be like, "Hey, what you did isn't cool."
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Yep. So. All right. Well, that's that. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if I'll ever. Maybe maybe I'll take your advice, and whenever I do finally get Netflix, I'll watch the last couple episodes. But yeah, it just, I don't know. Part of that is what you said about us being complicit in some way, and that's part of it is me, like, having trouble accepting responsibility for that fact. I did the same thing with so I don't know if you remember, but there was a week where Darkseid and the AEW biographies were running concurrently.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a week where they did Darkseid did an Ultimate Warrior and A&E did an Ultimate Warrior. And like, Ultimate Warrior is the reason I'm a wrestling fan. Like, there's no there's a wrestling, that's why there's a wrestling buddy there in the corner of the room. Like, and so, like, I ended up just not watching either of them, because I'm like, I don't need to see a puff piece, like, especially after the self-destruction DVD that they put out like 20 years prior. Like, I don't need to see this WWE puff piece of him knowing what I know, but I also don't want to sit through a 2 hour of what an asshole he was. Like, so I just avoided both of them. And that's kind of where I'm at with this. Like, I just don't.
Right, but I feel like that's kind of the problem. I think that's kind of the problem is we're always like, and this isn't just wrestling anymore. This is like life in general.
Everything.
People would rather put their head in the sand and just pretend it doesn't exist than have a conversation or explore their own inner like role in societal things,
Right.
And that's not a shot at you, because like I'm guilty I'm just as guilty as any wrestling fan of continuing to watch, even though I knew it was filled with bad people.
Right.
Real quick, and then we can move on to the Lions.
Yeah.
Since you're probably not going to see this for a while, there is a part of the documentary after the allegations come out where they sit down with Bruce Pritchard. This is January of 2024. It's the day that the Netflix deal gets announced. Vince is back with the company. They've just made this $5 billion announcement. And they ask Bruce, they go, hey, you've seen some of the episodes. What do you think? He's like, I think it sucks. It's a hit piece. It's all about the nastiness of Vince McMahon and how bad of a person he is, blah, blah, blah. And he says all this stuff and talks about how Vince got his wife the best care when she had cancer and all of that, right? And then it goes 2 days later.
Yeah.
That's when the lawsuit drops. And it's just like, if that isn't the perfect encapsulation of how he got away with it, stooges, ass kissers, scumbags like Bruce Pritchard, who will defend that man to the very end because he did some nice things for Bruce, it excuses all the awful stuff he did because he treated me well. He put money in my pocket. He took care of me. So I'm okay. It doesn't matter what he did to all these other people.
Right.
He took care of me. And it was just like all the people for years that are like, Bruce Pritchard's a scumbag, blah, blah, blah. And you and I loved his show. And it was always like, it doesn't seem like it's so bad. Well, there it is. He's just as bad as people have said. He's probably worse. Because if anyone knows where the bodies are that's still alive, it's Bruce Pritchard.
Yep. So I actually did. There's a lot of screenshots. What's his face from Botchamania was posting. Matthew was posting a bunch of screenshots, and that was one of them. That was the side by side of closed captioning of what he said, and then the 2 days later thing. And I'm like, that sounds about right. So, but real quick, we have our first comment. Look at this. Hi, Junior Loyola. How
That's
are
the
you?
comment. Hi.
Yeah, just hi. So
welcome.
I hope you're enjoying the show. All right. So Lions won on Sunday, but everyone died in the course of it, or
correct.
Seemingly everyone. And now we got this Monday night game coming up, and it's a game I want to win, but at the same time, it's like we already know Ragnow's not playing. It's kind of like maybe you should just sit the people, and you got the bye week next week, and get ready for the Dallas game. So I don't know where you're at with everything. So
I don't know. I don't want to jump to the negative all the time because they're good. They're a good football team.
They are. I know.
I'm so happy to have something. But for me, I'm thinking like down the road, right? It's no longer about just being competitive or winning the division. There's the ultimate goal is it now. There is no runner up. There is no good season for me. This it's to me it's just like the Yankees. You either win the big one or the season's a failure at this point. And what I've seen so far, I don't think they got it. I don't think they have that killer instinct yet, and maybe they'll develop it over the next few weeks. where I feel like they're a legit Super Bowl contender if everyone's healthy. If teams around the league are healthy.
Right.
Luckily for us, all their teams are dealing with tons of injury issues, right? We think we're bad. The 49ers are
I know.
on life support. The Eagles are their top 2 receivers are hurt. Lane Johnson's hurt. Like, so it's not like we're the only ones dealing with injury problems.
Sure. And yeah, it definitely could be worse, but it's just I agree with part of what you're saying, like it's about, the end. And that's why I'm kind of like waffling about what I want them to do, because it's like they need to win this game. They need to exercise the Seattle demon that for whatever reason they can't get off their back. They can't beat this team. So you got another crack at them in your house on Monday Night Football. Look, they're 2-1, which is fine, whatever. But, Green Bay didn't fall off with Jordan Love being hurt, and it sounds like he's going to be back this week. You got Minnesota, who no one expected. They're a wagon right now. Their defense is unbelievable, and they're 3-0. So you got those 2 teams in your division that you got to worry about, let alone everyone else. And like you said, I think that they are capable, because while the offense hasn't looked good, the defense has clearly stepped up. That they've made the leap that we've wanted the defense to make. So I think that kind of balances out, and I still think the offense is going to get better. But that said, they need to win. They need to have the home field advantage. So these games are important. So yeah, it's just kind of but there's a big part of me I'm glad I'm actually glad that they already made the decision that Ragnall's not going to play. Because if he fully tears that thing and is out the rest of the year, then they're really screwed. It sounds like if the couple weeks off, he should be okay, or at least that dude's a beast. So he'll make it okay. I guess he heard it in the first quarter and played the rest of the game. So yeah, he's a monster. So non-derogatory. But with Laporta's ankle, Brant, I haven't. So I guess I really haven't heard other than Ragnow what practice has been like for everyone. So what's everyone saying? What's it sounds like for Laporta and Branch? And I know
Laporta did not practice.
Go ahead.
Laporta didn't practice today. Branch and Rakestraw were both limited in practice, and I feel like Anzalone didn't practice today.
So his concussion is lingering.
I think that was the other. There were 3 names that I saw stood out that didn't practice, and I feel like he was the third one. Or no, it was Melifonwu. He still isn't practicing.
Okay. See, that's the thing.
So,
I feel like one or the other has to play, either Iffy or Branch has to play. You can't have both of them out,
Well, so you mentioned the defense, but we're starting to run into some problems here. Davenport was supposed to be the other side of the line for Hutch. He's gone for the year. Barnes is going to be out for a while. Anzalone's coming back from a concussion. So that means Jack Campbell and Rodrigo are your linebackers, and then maybe you throw Reeves Maben in there.
Yeah.
But then you're off. Branch might not play. Rakestraw might not play if he's hurt. I know people are happy with the way Arnold played in the second half on Sunday. He's been a liability out there. Teams are targeting him, and he got better as that game went on, but he's become a problem because teams know he's going to get called for penalties. and he gives up some plays. I know people are really happy with Carlton Davis. I keep seeing him get torched. He hasn't got beat for a big play, but I've watched a few guys run him in circles, and I'm a little concerned about like what this defense is going to look like if they're not fully healthy. And now we're going to find out. They're going to be missing multiple starters now.
Yeah.
To go back, you said you think the offense is going to come together, and I'm sure it will. But also, man, like you and I went back and forth during the game. Ben Johnson has got to stop trying to be the smartest guy in the room all the time. Sometimes the smartest move is just to line up and do the easiest thing. And especially when you haven't been able to move the ball consistently for 3 straight games. And here we are again, another game where the offense is inept in the second half. They didn't score in the second half of that game against the Arizona Cardinals. Come on. They couldn't move the ball against Tampa in the second half. At some point, you got to be like, you got to give me more than, I know the perfect time to call a trick play. The hook and ladder was brilliant. Brilliant. But let's not forget, 3 plays earlier, you were this close to, you should have had a pick 6 against you. Let's be real. You shouldn't even have had the ball at that point.
Right.
So the game, who knows what happens after that? I'm not going to say they should have lost the game or that's what screwed the Cardinals because they had a whole nother half of football to play.
Right.
But this thing of like it's 2nd and 2. I'm sorry if you just saw that confetti go. We had birthday parties in the house today. It's party week in the Durr house.
All right.
When it's 2nd and 2 and you're leading in the second half by 10 points, run the goddamn football. Let's keep this clock moving. Why are we dropping back and trying to throw downfield when they haven't proven an ability to stop you at this point? And then after a couple possessions of punting the ball away, the defense was able to lock in on their run game, and you notice in the fourth quarter, they couldn't run the ball as well. Maybe if you wear them down in the third quarter and just keep that clock moving and keep them on the field a little longer, that's not an issue.
Right.
I don't know. And that goes back to the killer instinct. Like I thought in the second week in a row I've said St. Louis. I thought in the Rams game and last week especially, they had a shot to put their foot on the other team's throat and close the game out. And they not only were they unable to do it, but they were like visually inept for 20 minutes on offense. Like they couldn't do anything. And it's aggravating at this point.
Yeah. I didn't have as big a problem with him this week as I did the week prior, just because like I said, my issue with the Tampa game was just the balance was way off. And it was more, I think it was like 47 runs and only 23 passes this week. Like that's more like it. Like I don't, you can't, Goff shouldn't be throwing 50 times, but he can't throw 12 times either. Like you're paying him $50 million. He's got to throw the ball.
He's got to throw the ball, but like throwing the ball on a double reverse screen to the running back when you're struggling to move the ball in general is like, what do we do? Like why? Like they were winning at that point. Save that play for in 3 weeks when you got Minnesota and you really need a score, because now it's on film and teams can look out for it. Like, and that play got bailed out by David Montgomery scooping a ball up off the ground that was, I think, meant for the dirt, and Jared just threw it high enough for him to pick it up. He got like 5 yards, but that should have been a negative play. Like,
right?
I get it. It's exciting when they pull out these little plays where you're like, how did Brock Wright get so wide open? But we need some consistency too, because that's great. But if the only way you can move the football is convoluted trick plays, you've got a little bit of an issue here. And the passing game hasn't been that strong in any of the 3 games.
True. But I mean, again, I look, it's not that strong anywhere in the league. So it's not just them.
I'm not worried about the rest of the league. I'm worried about us. I've seen
I
what this
understand
offense
that, but
can
like
do.
you do have to like take a step back and be like, okay, this isn't just an us problem. So
Oh, did I miss Monday night when Josh Allen hung a 50 burger almost on the director of player development or whatever he is down in Jacksonville? Did I miss that? Did I miss Jaden Daniels not punting for 2 straight weeks with the Washington Commanders? Name me 5 players on the Washington Commanders offense.
Terry McLaurin. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so I this argument that scoring is down around the league. No, it's not. It's not down around the
It
league.
is.
No.
It
It's
is.
not. It's not down around the league to a point where the line. There goes that goddamn confetti again. To where I'm going to be like, no, it's okay that the Lions are having trouble moving the football. Other teams are moving the football too.
You're picking out 2 isolated incidents. Like if you look at the numbers, scoring is down from last year all across the league. Like it is.
I'm not worried about the rest of the league when I can visually watch the Lions just refuse to do things that have helped them over the last couple of years. And running the football has been that thing. And for whatever reason, the run game is going, and he's now something he wants to run. Like I said, double reverse screens and this. Oh, we're gonna fake the handoff, and then we're gonna turn around and throw a 5-yard pass that gets blown up in the backfield. Like I just don't want to hear that. It would be different if there were a new offensive coordinator, new players involved, everyone's back. Like I don't want to hear that.
Okay. You don't like facts. That's fine. Fake news. But I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I don't know. I hope they win on Monday, but I more than anything, I hope they come out of the game healthy and head into the bye, get healthy over the bye. And I really want the Dallas game. The Dallas game is the one that they gotta have. So all right. Well, seeing as Matt looks like he froze again, we're just gonna call this a show because we've been going for quite a while. We had a lot to talk about this week. So leave a thumbs up on the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a thumbs up, all that good kind of stuff. We may or may not be back next week. Again, I'm kind of waiting to decide what I may go to the collision taping next week, but we'll see. We'll see. Oh, wait, hold on. He's back. I was going to end the show.
Storm off. I just have terrible internet service. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I was just going to wrap up the show anyway. So, yeah, but I was informing them that we may or may not be here next week, depending on if we decide to go to collision or not.
Yeah, so, we can talk offline. I realize
we'll talk offline.
I probably won't be able to go to collision anyway. So
okay, well, I might still go depending, but we'll see. So, but if not, we'll be here to preview Bad Blood and all that fun stuff. So, yeah. Until next time, everyone. See ya.